The Chairman of the Committee on Finance is ready to present the budget of the Department of Labor and Employment. May we recognize the Chairman of the Committee on Finance to present the budget.
The Chairman of the Finance Committee, Senator Drilon, is recognized to present the budget of the Department of Labor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise this afternoon to present for this Chamber's approval the budget of the Department of Labor and Employment. The 2012 General Appropriations Bill provides for a budget of $6,990,000,000 for the budget of the Department of Labor. This is $597 million more, or 9.4% higher than the current year's budget of $6.39 billion pesos. The bulk of the proposed budget is accounted for by the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, with a budget of $2,746,000,000. This is 39.3% of the budget of the Department of Labor. The Office of the Secretary has a budget of 2.3 billion pesos, or 12.9% of the budget of the Department of Labor. We are now ready to answer questions on the period of interpellation, Mr. President.
Mr. President, may we recognize the Minority Leader, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano.
The Minority Leader, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Would the hardworking and sponsor please allow me to ask a few questions about actually more on the policies of the Dole family, and I'd like the Dole family, and I'd like to greet the Secretary. And of course, the sponsor is a former Secretary of Labor, so he'll be more than knowledgeable to answer the policy questions.
The Minority Leader should also greet the head of the TESDA, Mr. Joel Villanueva, who has the highest budget in the Department of Labor, Mr. President.
Yeah, I'd like to also greet Secretary Villanueva, and I have a lot of questions for him, but since charity begins at home and TESDA home is in Taguig, I will not ask him much questions.
He will join us after 2 more budget rounds. Yes, Mr. President, we are ready.
Your Honor, there's been, a few years ago, the definition of or the parameters of the term or concept of unemployment was changed, so that there were certain conditions for a person to be considered unemployed. No? And I was just wondering, well, for a preliminary question, what is the unemployment rate of the Philippines now?
The unemployment unemployment rate is 7.1%, Mr. President. Yes, 7.1%.
So to the layman, out of 100 Filipinos, 7.1 of them, or 7 to round it off, will not have a job. No, when to a layman, no, to a layman, yes. If you do not know the definition of unemployed.
That is, to a layman, that might be the impression, but that is not really the correct definition, because it is the 7.1% would represent the percentage of those who have no jobs in the labor force and actively looking for employment.
Yes. So one of the keywords you mentioned is actively looking for jobs. So, for example, if a person who is of working age stays at home and is not looking for a job, he will not be considered in that statistic.
That's correct, Your Honor. He is not part of the unemployed statistics.
And then another part of the definition, if he works for a certain season or for a certain period of time, even if he would not have a job at the rest of his hours, then he would, or time, he would also be considered employed, or he will not be considered unemployed.
For the week, for the reference, which is the week. If he works for 1 hour, he is already employed. Kala ko for the week, for the period, which is 4 months. Okay, that's what I was saying. Okay. A person, member of the labor force, who works for at least 1 hour during the reference period, which is the week that the survey was taken, a person who works for 1 hour is considered as part of the employed.
That's right. And I will not argue with this definition because I think it's an international standard or international.
That's correct, sir.
Yes. But there has been many proposals. I'm not sure if it was Newsweek or Time Magazine who was even saying, why do we keep measuring GDP, GNP, all of this growth, and why don't we just have a simple happiness factor, no? Which Senator Lauren Legardo also mentioned in one of her speeches before, where you simply look how much are the prices and do you have work and how much are you making. No? So the trend now is really to make everything user-friendly and to simplify. Your Honor, this is why I bring it up. During the election, we took a SWS survey in Taguig. And I assume that Taguig will be in the national average because as being one of the centers of commerce with Fort Bonifacio, but having a number of factories in the FTI, Veteran Center, and Tibicay Industrial Center, no? I would say that our average should be the same, no? Or 7.1 or 7.4% unemployed. The survey asked a simple question, may trabaho ka ba o wala? You would be floored by the result. 50%. 1 out of 2 Taguigueños did not have work. I have not had the opportunity to ask SWS or Pulse Asia or any of the other credible and big survey companies to do a nationwide survey. But kung hindi man 50%, I would say baka 30 or 35%. I don't know if the Labor Department would like to give me, do they have any data or do they have an educated guess? Pag tinanong natin kaya sa ordinaryong Pilipino, sino may trabaho at sinong wala? No? Ilan % kaya ang tingin nilang wala?
We do not have that kind of a survey asking that kind of a question. But just off the top of my head, the respondent, when he responds to that, may think of trabaho or work in the sense of being regularly employed, particularly in a commercial or industrial enterprise. They may not consider work activity in the informal sector as trabaho, or work in the agricultural sector as trabaho. So I guess there are several ways of looking at that data. The question, may trabaho ka ba o wala, certainly can elicit a response which could be completely different from the data that is based on internationally accepted standards of measuring unemployment in a given country.
Well, anyway, Your Honor, my point was not to debate on the definitions or in the weaknesses or strengths of these surveys. No, I could also hamper a guess that if they're selling anything in the streets or their vendor, they would say may trabaho sila. My point really is to give our people and our government agencies a true picture of reality. Because until we accept the real situation and the problem, we can't really begin to see the enormity of the problem and solve it. And I remember my favorite quote about statistics. He said, statistics is like a bikini. What it shows is revealing, but what it hides is essential. No? And 7.1 or 7.4 seems to show that more than 90% of our people are employed. And this does not even take into consideration, of course, the 10 million or 8.9 or 9 or depending on the present statistics, OFWs that we have abroad, no? So, Your Honor, my line of questioning is really more of a proposal to the Department of Labor to try to develop its own system, maybe in working with local governments or survey companies, to really find out the real situations in certain areas, to be able to work closely, no, whether if it's an agricultural area or rural area, no, how to have more jobs in that area, or if it's a urban area, or even to the World Bank just came out with a study, no, about why higher education is not giving us the results, both for people personally, no, and for and as a nation. They were saying that there is not enough emphasis in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and saying that maraming nakakatapos thinking that if they have a diploma, they can work, pero pagtapos nila, wala. And I guess Secretary Villanueva will be smiling because that's precisely his role, no, to inform people that it's not the diploma, it's the skills that's important nowadays. No? But my point, Your Honor, is that if people know, when I found out that 50% of my kababayan in Taguig do not have work or think that they do not have work, it really gave me the extra zeal to try to find work or livelihood or sponsor entrepreneurship seminars, etc. No? So I think the president, when he was a senator and a congressman, hated the fact that the government is very weak when it comes to research and statistics. Someone showed me a website on the cell phone the other day, and he said that 78% of statistics used in debates are not true. So I don't know if that statistic is part of the 78% or if it's part of the 22% na totoo. My point, Your Honor, is that if we start debating here, are we doing better under the Aquino administration because we have 7.1 versus 8% or versus 6%, it really doesn't give us the true picture of, you know, how bad the situation is. And we're not even talking about income levels. No? I was reviewing the Family Income and Expenditure Survey, and they have changed some of the parameters or presentation, making it harder for us to see how much is really the income of which groups that are coming in, Your Honor. So anyway, Your Honor, I won't belabor that point, and I just have one more point about our OFWs. The thing is, I just like to ask the different agencies and departments if we can be a little bit more creative and simplify things and be able to, in computer language, be very user-friendly. No? And I think this will enable the state universities, TESDA, etc., to really gear up or to reformat their programs to a certain area. For example, in Taguig, because Secretary Villanueva is from there, if he knows that 50% do not have jobs, he knows that there are many more that will enroll in TESDA rather than in other areas. I wonder if Makati, Muntinlupa, Pasig, Pateros are neighbors, if it's also 50% or if it's a different case in their case, Your Honor. But anyway, I won't belabor the point, Your Honor, and I just wanted to get that through, that aside from unemployment, underemployment, there are other statistics, there are other labels that medyo malayo sa atin mga kababayan, malayo sa ating mga kababayan nyo, or sabi nga, malayo sa bituka, ika nga, no? Because these terms talk about GDP, GNP. You tell them na mas tumataas ang GNP, GDP, but hindi nila maramdaman, or there no new work, etc. You have this big debate. Your Honor, just like to put on the record that even from the Department of Labor in their statistics, no, there are more unemployed, educated individuals rather than uneducated, than less educated individuals. No, high school graduates 1,270,000, college graduates 1,249,000, and elementary graduates 339,000. No? I don't know if it's also because of the definitions or if we have more elementary graduates who are in countries like Hong Kong, Taiwan in factories, etc. No? But my point, Your Honor, this will really show the disconnect. So later on, we will be dealing with the SUCs, and only 23% of Filipinos go to college, and only 14% graduate. But can you imagine, of the 14% who graduate, 1.27 million do not have jobs. So it's like a false promise to tell our children now, mag-college kayo para makakuha kayo ng trabaho, na baliktad pala nangyayari. It's not that I'm promoting TESDA and skills development, but I think really the key is to give a better picture to our kababayans of what the employment rate really is, what jobs are really available, what jobs are really... I was asking Secretary Villanueva of the languages that are being offered by TESDA. Ano ba sa mga languages yun ang talagang kinukuha ng call centers? Kasi kung sasabihin mo, ang pinaka-spoken language, tatlo, di ba? Chinese, English, and Spanish. But he was telling me there's not that much demand for Spanish. Is that correct? No? For Spanish. But for a layman, and they were going to choose what language to study, there's probability that you would pick Spanish. No? So I think all of these simple steps of informing people and making the statistics or making the concepts yung abot ng masa, Your Honor, would be of big help. Your Honor, may I just ask a few questions about our OFWs?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we consider them bayani ng ating bayan, but a few months ago, well, in 2008, no, in 2008, Chief Justice Artemio Panganiban wrote a column entitled "Shabby Treatment of OFWs at Airport." And I think any one of us who are traveling would always see that either in the immigration or other parts of the airport, there'll be one or two of our OFW kababayan na namumroblema. In fact, last night I was wondering about it. Bakit ang ordinaryong OFW kailangan ng exit permit, pero ang Pangulo ng Bansa na dating Pangulo na ina-accuse ng plunder ay hindi kailangan ng exit permit. No? At nagiging issue pa ngayon kung pwede siyang tigilan umalis. No? And this exit permit, I know that in general, no, it's to protect them. But how many, I wonder how many of them are being protected and how many of them are being hassled because of it? Is the solution becoming a problem itself? I know it'll be a long debate kung isa-isahin ko, so I'll just fast forward, Your Honor. Because of this column, the Chief Justice asked OFWs to email him the problems of OFWs. So this is sort of an informal survey, but it was the people who answered him were actual OFWs, no? And he made a matrix and a chart of how OFWs have to deal with government. And this is how the chart went: job application, pre-departure, departure, working and living abroad, vacation or balikbayan, and then reintegration. And then after that, he listed the permits needed in each step or the agencies that they have to go to. No? And let me read some of them. For job application, you have to go to DOLE and POEA. For pre-departure, you have to go to DFA, POEA, OWA, PhilHealth. In departure, NAIA and Bureau of Immigration. Working and living abroad, Philippine Embassy, the consulates, the POLO. If you are going to vacation or become a balikbayan, POA, OWA, PhilHealth, and then reintegration, of course, DOLE and TESDA. But aside from this, Mr. President, and Your Honor, the Chairman of the Committee on Finance, ang dami din mga requirements, no, yung mga NBI clearance, etc., no. So I just like to ask, Your Honor, aside from the agencies, the OWA, of course, the DOLE Secretary, POE, etc., is there a group studying all of this now and trying to plan how to simplify all of this and really make our OFWs feel like heroes? Just one additional comment. I frequent the OFWs in Hong Kong. There was even one time that one of the forms because there are 300,000 of them there, whether legal o hindi, kunwari naubos yung form, and they had to pay 50 Hong Kong dollars just to get a form which was free if they got it in the Philippines. No? But I'd like to know if, in the eyes of the Dole family, okay na ba ang sistema natin sa OFWs, or do you share the belief that there's really big room for improvement, and is there a group studying this on how to improve all of this for our OFWs? Sorry for the long question, Your Honor.
It's okay, I shut down, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, the POEA has a continuing review of its rules and regulations. We are aware of these bureaucratic processes which sometimes are justified as being necessary to prevent the unscrupulous agents from victimizing our hapless overseas workers. But we may sometimes be overdoing the regulation, so that there is a continuing process in the POEA where the rules and regulations are being reviewed in order to simplify the process. And sometimes in our effort to protect our overseas Filipino workers in general and our OFW open-close quote industry, we sometimes overdo it, and there is a tendency to overdo it, which results in undue difficulties on our OFWs. But we assure the Chamber that this is not the intention of the Department of Labor. The policy is to try to protect our OFWs. We sometimes overstep and exaggerate the process, but we assure the gentleman from Taguig that the process for reviewing the rules and regulations to simplify the procedure is a continuous process, and maybe early next year or the first quarter of next year there will be some new rules precisely designed to address these complaints that the gentleman from Taguig is spreading into the record of the Senate.
Your Honor, may I make a suggestion and give our brothers and sisters in the Dole an assignment, a one-year assignment for the budget hearing maybe next year? And next year would be a good year because it would be a budget hearing for the midterm of the President. No? By then, we would have been halfway in the Aquino administration. May I ask if they can put something like that in their website, no? Like an area where the OFWs can, whether it's a blog or it's a question to OFWs, saan ba kayo nahihirapan, or ano, saan kayo nahahassle, or anong kailangan baguhin sa sistema namin? And if you can have a group to categorize that, and then, I don't know whether it's in the Oversight Committee chaired by our President, Senate President Pro Temp, or whatever committee, we could work on it during the year, and by next budget hearing, you know, we could have a mahimay natin ng mas mabuti. Kasi if I go to one issue after the other now, Your Honor, I would delay the budget hearings, and I'm sure we won't be able to come up with a solution today, because as you said, for every regulation, may advantage, may disadvantage. So I was just wondering if the Secretary and her people are open. They probably have something like that already, but I'm just saying in a more organized manner, can we have a formal discussion on it, no? And can we see from the start, from the recruitment of OFWs until reintegration, can we look at each and every step and how we can make it easier for our kababayans?
Yes, we will do that. In fact, there will be, as a standard form, there will be a Q&A and FAQs, or frequently asked questions, that will be in the website of the POEA.
Lastly, Your Honor, I'd just like to mention, I said this to the Secretary of the DFA before he was confirmed. Madalas nasisisi para sa mga nakakalusot, no, na hindi qualified magtrabaho sa ibang bansa, lalo yung mga underage. Ang DOLE usually, o POA or OWA ang nasisisi. But I asked the Secretary, because when we went to Jordan a few years ago with Senator Villar, when he was Senate President, mga 5 o 6 sila na below 16 years old. And they couldn't speak Tagalog, and they couldn't speak English. So, it wasn't even as simple as calling Manila for a translator. They had to call Mindanao, no? And they were so afraid of being sent back home because papagalitan sila ng mga magulang nila because they borrowed so much money to get there. So I was telling the DFA that, alam mo, ang dole ang parating nasisisi. But actually, paano sila nagkaroon ng passport? No?
Mr. President, falsification of the birth certificate is not unusual. In the case of the Muslims, the certification comes from the Office of Muslim Affairs. When they certify one as being 18 or above, the POA would accept that as its face value because that's a public document. So, yes, we are trying to... this is the reason why sometimes, because of all of these incidents, there is a tendency to over-regulate.
That's right.
So the balancing becomes very critical and difficult because of these incidents, as you have cited, as the gentleman has cited, Mr. President. He has met OFWs 15 years old. But if you look at their passport and their birth certificates, I can assure you that it is 25 or so years old.
Precisely my point, Your Honor, that it wasn't the fault of Dole or of their agencies. But what I'd like to put on record is that just like what is happening now, that we're trying to hold the former president accountable for actions she did when she was president. Alam mo, dapat may makulong dyan eh. And I agree with you, Your Honor, dun sa mga mukha namang 18, no? Or mukhang 19 na nabigyan ng passport. But there were some there who were 12, 13, 14 na obvious na imposibleng maging 18 anyos pero nabigyan pa rin ng passport. Pero ang sinisisi hindi ang DFA, di ba?
Yeah.
Pero anyway, Your Honor, I won't belabor that point.
No, precisely that you brought this up. Earlier, I think it was in the issue of offloading was raised. Here, precisely one of the factors that the immigration would look at is the age of the prospective worker abroad. And again, here, brought to our attention is the fact that, you know, many in the bureaucracy would be the source of these difficulties when birth certificates are issued not reflecting the correct age.
But, Your Honor, ang tingin kong kulang po, hindi natin kinakasuhan eh. So, katulad ng mga taga-Jordan, I think pinauwi sila. But I wonder kung kinasuhan at inimbestigahan talaga who brought them there, who recruited them, you know, who was responsible for giving them passports, etc. No? I had a neighbor before, Your Honor, na pauwi. And he didn't want to sue the employer when he was maltreated because the people in the embassy told them, I will help you but you have to promise not to sue them. No? So ang daming ganitong nangyayari sa atin, but not until a couple of people are behind bars. And as you said, no, falsification of whether it's the birth certificate or the passport, no, is really it's a crime. It's penalized by law. But as I'm barking at the wrong tree because I'm precisely saying na hindi kasalanan ng Dole yon, no? But Your Honor, I'm saying that unless Dole also interacts with the other agencies, sila din ang mapagbibintangan dahil sila ang frontline eh. So thank you very much, Your Honor. I don't have any more questions, and I'm fully supportive. In fact, I hope that Dole can have even a bigger budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.